Do you want to take control of your health? Hear the truth about dieting and weight loss? Learn the best strategies for maintaining a healthy lifestyle? This is the Yossi Muller Show.
And welcome to the show. I'm Yossi Muller.
And I'm Duddy Muller.
Duddy is a chef with a background in nutrition.
Yossi is a nutritionist with a background in nutrition.
Every show we do, we take another myth and debunk it.
We crush it.
Today's topic is, I don't have time to exercise. People believe that the reason why they don't exercise is they just don't have time for it. And that's not the real reason. And if we can get to what the real reason is, then maybe we can solve the problem.
Okay, well, wait 1 second. What exactly is the point of exercise in the first place?
The point of exercise is when you lose weight, if you want to maintain that weight, then exercise is very important and in certain cases even necessary for a person to maintain their weight loss. It also helps you lose inches, meaning you will lose inches on your waist. You will not lose weight on the scale, but you will lose fat. So you will see the inches lost. And it's also good for your health and energy, but not weight loss, like we discussed in a previous episode.
So exercise is very important, incredibly so even, just not for weight loss.
And you really have time to do exercise because you have the same 24 hours in your day as everyone else.
It's really just a question of how to fit exercise in your schedule, not if you can fit exercise in your schedule. When you say, I don't have the time, you're using quote unquote busy as an excuse. Busy just means that you prioritize everything else you do over exercise. Really, you have time. Everyone has time. It's just that everything else is more important.
Exactly, because if I could give you an hour a day extra, that you have 25 hours in your day, I can guarantee that you will not use it for exercise.
Right.
Even if I made a deal with you that you only get this extra hour if you do it for exercise, you'll say no deal.
You have some other reason why you don't want to exercise. Meanwhile, exercise is so important.
Whatever it is that you're busy with, family matters, religious matters, livelihood matters, they're all super important. But exercise is important for all those three.
Right. It's just a little more difficult, perhaps, to fit it into your schedule, but everyone has time. I mean, everyone will find some part of a full, healthy lifestyle that will be easier for them or more difficult for them and easier for others, but everyone can do it. It isn't any different from any other aspect of your life that needs to change. Your diet needs to change. That's also fitting your new eating habits into your eating schedule. So too, you're fitting your new activity habits into your schedule, but it's a change. Just like any other change, you have to find the time for it. You have to prioritize it over other things. It's the same thing.
One reason why people may think that they don't have time for it is because they think that they have to do a lot of exercise. But really, an hour a week, which is 10 minutes a day, is already a very significant amount of time. And it's also important that people should realize that if they're going to do just an hour a week of exercise, which is fine, but they should do moderate to intense exercise. They shouldn't just do a very mild, casual stroll around the block. And moderate to intense doesn't just mean in the range of moderate to intense, but additionally, it should be increasing in intensity. In other words, moderate to the goal of becoming more intense.
Start with moderate and end up with intense.
Now, you know it's important, and we just established that it doesn't take that long. And we also established that whatever it is you're busy with, which may be very important, doesn't negate the fact that exercise is also very important and related to whatever it is that you really, truly value. So it's not that you don't have time for it, but it's that you don't like to do it.
That's it.
Now, maybe you like the way you feel when you exercise, but you don't like the preparation, the getting dressed, the driving, the having to shower, the changing the clothing. There's some aspect of it you don't like. Maybe you don't like the exercise, but you're happy that you do it.
It's very common, just like by eating healthy. You might not enjoy it as much, but afterwards you feel amazing. Exercise itself is very commonly not felt so good while you're exercising. Unless you've been doing it for a while, you develop a taste for it. But once you have done it, you feel amazing after. You have the energy, you end up looking better, you're healthier.
But there is some aspect of exercise that you don't like. Perhaps it's the exertion. Maybe the exercise is boring. Or maybe you're embarrassed to do exercise.
That's common early on in the exercise process. You're typically not in good shape. So it can be embarrassing to go in public.
The most common question people ask is, what type of exercise should I do? And that's the wrong question, because it's not so important what type of exercise you do.
Especially as far as we're concerned,
Yeah, it's not like you're training for a very specific Olympic sport.
that you need a specific exercise because you're focusing on a specific skill.
Yeah,
You're focusing on general exercise because general health and general movement and general fitness.
and general maintaining the weight that you lose. The right question would be, how can I get it to happen?
Right. When it comes to exercise, even more so than with weight loss, the right exercises for you are the ones that you will actually do.
If you think about what percent of the population exercises regularly, and when I say regularly, I'm referring to even an hour a week, but I'm talking about regularly, you'll realize that it's a very small number. And it's because people think that their issue is the time, but really they kind of don't like to exercise. They don't like the discomfort involved. The question should be, how can I get it to happen? So one thing you need to know is that you should start off slow.
Right. Yes.
Because if you start off with intense exercise and with a lot of exercise, one of three things can happen. One, you might eat more because you'll be very hungry because it's a shock to your system.
So you have to start off slow, slowly incorporate exercise so you don't put too much of a strain on your appetite. It makes it much more difficult to keep the diet if your appetite is increasing too much.
You also may risk an injury or muscle strain.
So you want to start off slow with regard to building the intensity and difficulty of the exercise. You can't go from no exercise to intense exercise without very high risk of injury, which is not good. You don't want to get injured. It hurts.
And you want to make sure it fits in your schedule. If you start off with a lot, it may be difficult to get it into your schedule. And there's good news, and that is that when you start off slow and start off with minimal exercise, it actually works out well, because at the beginning, when you're not used to exercise, your body actually appreciates even very little exercise. Once you're used to exercise, you do have to do something a little bit more intense and perhaps more than a couple of minutes at a time. But at the beginning, you don't have to do anything too serious.
Don't feel obligated to exercise if you just started your diet, because you're already under a strain. You haven't developed your ability to stick to the diet. You want to make sure that you are really strong in the diet before you start adding in other things that can affect it. As we know, exercise can very much affect your diet and how you keep to it.
Right. Because when it comes to weight loss, diet is the only thing that matters. And when it comes to fat loss, even though exercise doesn't help you lose weight, it does help you lose fat. But even that is minimal compared to how much fat you could lose from diet. So you certainly should not feel obligated to exercise while you're dieting, especially at the beginning. And obviously, the main thing to consider is what exercise will happen. For me personally, a treadmill won't work, because if I get myself a treadmill, the only exercise I'll get is jumping to conclusions and pushing my luck, because I'm not going to end up using that treadmill except to hang my clothing on it.
That kind of exercise will certainly not help towards weight loss.
The exercise should be enjoyable, or at least tolerable.
Right.
I personally don't want to run unless someone is chasing me.
I don't want to run even if someone is chasing me.
So anyway, enjoying exercise is pretty important, and Rabbi Jonathan Rayedi has done a lot to publicize what the Rambam says about exercise, and that is that enjoying exercise is actually the healthiest way to do exercise. And he brings an example of playing ball. Even though the Rambam was around so many years ago, he was talking about playing soccer, and he was saying that that is an example of an enjoyable exercise.
Interesting.
So what factors can influence whether an exercise is enjoyable or not?
Well, you could compare indoors to outdoors.
Some people prefer outdoors because of the fresh air, and others prefer indoors because the weather will be predictable. You don't have to worry about rain or snow, or if it's dark outside or too cold or too hot.
Another factor that people take into account is daily exercise or less frequent exercising.
Right. An advantage of daily is that it is more of a routine, and you could also do less at one time. If you're doing daily, you don't have to do so much at once. Or if you do less frequently, you may find that some days in your week are more free than others. So it may work better to do less frequently. And if you have a lot of prep, Like you have a whole pregame, changing and driving, and you have to shower. If it's a whole procedure going on, like if your exercise of choice is skiing, for example,
then you have to travel to where they're skiing.
Yeah, so you might want to
do that less frequently
than every day.
You can also take into account injury risk.
Right. Some people like sports, which carries with it a risk of injury.
Morning and night. Some people find it better to work out in the morning. Some people find it better to work out at night.
An advantage of the morning is that you get it done right away. Now, it's important to know that your body does get used to exercise. So if you do an exercise and you keep doing the same thing over and over again, it's not going to have such a good effect on you.
Eventually, it will lose its effectiveness.
So you should do an exercise that has resistance in it so that you do not need to add time to your workout. If you're doing the same exercise, like push-ups or sit-ups or jogging in place, that doesn't have resistance. So the only way you can confuse your body, so to speak, the only way you can get your body to still get a good effect from exercise is by increasing the time, which that I'll give you. You don't have time to do that. To keep increasing the time, that you don't have. So you should do an exercise that has resistance. So if you have weights, or if you're using a machine that allows you to increase the speed, or if you're playing a sport and the better you get, they put a better defender on you. So choose such an exercise that there's resistance so that you don't have to add time to your workout. You may find that accountability will help you stick to an exercise regimen.
Yeah, of course.
Maybe you should hire a trainer, or maybe you should exercise as part of a group. And don't sign up to a gym unless you'll really follow through with your commitment.
Most people don't, in fact, follow through with their commitment.
Only 22% of people who sign up for a gym actually show up regularly. You ever wonder how hundreds upon hundreds of people sign up to the gym around January time for the new year, and you ever wonder if the gym is going to all of a sudden get nervous? We need to make an extension to the gym. We have all these people signed up.
We need more equipment.
We need to buy a bunch of more treadmills. But as Dr. David Lieberman likes to point out, no, they know that you're not showing up because that's just the way it is. People like to sign up for the gym, but they don't actually follow through with it.
So gyms do work for some people, but not for all. And it's obviously the people who do stick around by the gym. It's not the gym that made it work. It was the motivation that made them stick to going to the gym.
And if we're quoting Dr. David Lieberman, I also want to mention that he stresses how when you exercise, you have to realize that you will gain weight on the scale the first week or two because muscle retains water. And when you shock your muscle by doing something it is not used to, you will gain water weight. And I will add that you don't gain muscle weight because, like we mentioned in the episode about exercise, you don't gain weight from running around.
Right.
Thermodynamics, physics, you can't create something from nothing. It's the food that you eat that turns into muscle. But if you don't eat extra food, which admittedly is not so easy for some people, but if you don't eat extra food, then it's your fat turning into muscle. So you don't gain weight because you put on muscle. But yes, it's very important to know that if you retain water, you will gain weight and you will lose inches. So don't get phased if you put on a couple of pounds the first couple of weeks of exercise. Sports that people find to be enjoyable are basketball, swimming, biking, tennis. And people who go to the gym typically will use the treadmill or elliptical or the steers. And people in the gym also use weights.
Weights are the easiest to develop because weights have different numbers. And the higher the number, the more intensity, the more resistance you're building. And that's exactly what we're looking for. Start low, build up.
And if you're doing it at home, you could do push-ups or sit-ups or jumping jacks or jump rope if your ceiling is high enough.
In your case, Yossi, even for jumping jacks, you have to watch out for the ceiling because you're so tall.
Yeah, and if you want to go to a class, popular classes include spin, dance, kickboxing.
You could always come up with your own ideas as well. These are just a few to get yourself thinking, get people into the ideas of finding something that you will enjoy, an exercise that you will enjoy.
And besides for official exercise, consider making your daily life involve more physical activity. Try standing instead of sitting.
Right, even the small things can make a difference if you keep them up and build on them. Standing instead of sitting is a small change that you stick to. It should be easy even.
And the fact that you spend so many hours a day sitting, if you switch that to standing, it can make a very big difference.
Absolutely.
Because people should generally either be standing or lying down. If you're trying to accomplish something, you should be standing. If you're trying to relax, you should be lying down. Because it relieves stress to lie down, but sitting doesn't do the body any good. And a good way to remember that is that your clothing is pretty tight when you're sitting, but when you're standing and when you're lying down, it's not so tight.
So the take-home message today is you do have time to exercise. You just need to find an exercise that you can follow through on. Remember, it's not about which exercise you do, but that you are exercising.
And that takes us to the end of this episode.
Thank you for listening.
We hope you join us next time.